Hello and welcome to today's Up to Thrive Manage Your Mind Mindful Moment.
Welcome to Up to Thrive, your go-to podcast for women's wellness in midlife, designed to educate, support, and inspire you to live your very best life. And now your host, Dr. Karina Sims.
Recently I mentioned that I was having a few challenges, and one of those challenges has to do with my daughter. So my daughter moved to Dubai a couple of years ago to work for an airline. And she has spent those couple of years working pretty hard, working her way up through the ranks. And she's just about to reach one of her big goals. And then, as we all know, some things have started happening over there with her neighbors in Iran. Thankfully, at the time of this recording, it seems like the attacks on the neighboring countries have settled down a bit, but there have been some tense times over the last couple of weeks. And some great opportunities for me to practice managing my mind. There have been some really interesting thoughts going on up there. So when it all hit the fan and the first bombs were dropped, Meg was being transported to her plane across the tarmac to prepare to board passengers. Her bus was turned back to the airport so she could take shelter there. When she got back to the airport, she rang home, frantically trying to find out what was going on, what we were hearing back here in Australia on the news. Eventually, she was sent home to her high-rise apartment building, and there we were on the phone quite a lot talking through things like where the best place in a high-rise building is to be when missiles and drones and debris are flying about and occasionally making contact with things. Meg's housemate was stranded in a tropical resort somewhere far away, half her luck. So Meg was on her own. She had friends who were gathering in other apartments and getting drunk, and other friends who were camping out in the basement of their building. She decided that for her, it would be best to just stay there in her apartment on her own, as the thought of being around other panicky people didn't really appeal to her. And for those first couple of days, at least, everyone was advised to just stay inside and hunker down, take shelter. Now, Meg went to Melbourne for uni, and pretty much a month after moving there, COVID hit. And I think at least the Aussies will recall that Melbourne had it the toughest out of all of us in Australia. I think they were pretty much in lockdown for 2 good years. It was pretty rough. So we joked that she knew how to hunker down. This she's had some experience with. This she could do. But when she could see the reality of explosions at the airport from her window, this was something new. Those first few days were pretty tense, and I did my very best to hold space for her and remain calm. For me, my role as her mother felt like it was to not panic alongside her. My job was to be steady. I just kept reminding myself that I can't control what's happening in the world. I can't control her job, the decisions of the government, or where missiles land. The only thing that I can control is how I manage my own mind and how I support her. So during those times when my brain wanted to race ahead into imagined futures, I would gently guide it back to the present moment. Right now, she's safe. Right now, she's messaging me. Right now, she's living her life. Our brains love to live in the future, imagining outcomes that haven't happened yet. But bringing my attention back to what's true right now in this moment was really helpful for me to stay grounded. In situations like this, our nervous system can become something we lend to the people we love. If I become anxious and panicked, that energy can travel straight through the phone and straight into her. If I stay calm and grounded, that calmness becomes something she can lean into. I just kept reminding myself that my job is to be a steady voice, not an amplifier of fear. This experience has reminded me how often in life we're faced with uncertainty, things that we cannot control, waiting for medical results, watching our children travel, facing financial or work challenges. Our brains desperately want certainty, but sometimes certainty just isn't available. In those moments, the work then becomes learning how to manage our minds, how to stay present, and how to show up in a way that is supportive rather than reactive. So my intention has been simple. Stay grounded, stay present, and stay calm. Be the steady voice my daughter can lean on while she goes through something that is understandably frightening. So less than a week after the start of this war, planes started to fly out again, and Meg was called in to fly to New Zealand. She was really frightened, as was I, but she got on the plane, and from afar on flight radar, I watched her plane take off, holding my breath and following it until it was well away from Dubai. There was a huge sense of relief seeing that plane flying away from there, like a huge weight had been lifted off of my shoulders, and that I could breathe again. The next day from Auckland, as she was enjoying some downtime with her workmates, she sent me a video that someone from Dubai had sent to her. It was a video of an explosion hitting the Dubai airport in the exact spot where her plane that she took to Auckland had been parked the day before. This made the whole thing seem that much more real and scary. Luckily, her stay in Auckland was extended a bit, and we both spent the next few days just enjoying and being grateful for her being safe and sound. But then it came time to fly back, and I had the mum talk. You know, you don't have to go back. You could work anywhere here in Australia. She explained that she just wasn't ready to come home yet. She has some goals she really wanted to achieve, and she was so close, she just couldn't bear to give up just yet. So I did what I do in my daily practice. We went through the risks and the benefits and what that looks like. The likelihood of this happening versus that happening. So for instance, your lifetime risk of dying in a car crash is 1 in 100, according to ChatGPT. And that sounds like a pretty fair estimate to me. Your risk of dying in a plane crash is 1 in 10 million, and the risk of death in Dubai from a missile, drone, or debris is 1 in several million, apparently. I think the discussion was very helpful. It put things into perspective for both of us. It also looked like maybe things were starting to settle down over there, and maybe the risk was even that much less. So even though she admitted to thoughts of hopping across the pond and coming home, she decided she would press on and continue to chase her goals. And then something happened, I think for both of us. There was this acceptance and peace with the decision. For some days afterwards, I found the experience of feeling this peace a little confusing. How could I be feeling peaceful when my daughter was returning to and living next door to a war zone? I spent some time thinking about it, this newfound peace, and what I came up with is that I think this happened for a couple of reasons. I think there is power in knowing and being very clear about what your choices are and the choices that you are consciously making, having weighed the risks and the benefits. I also know, as I said, that uncertainty can cause a lot of anxiety. The what ifs. What if something terrible happens? Then becomes, yeah, there's a risk. Lower than dying in a car or even a plane. But risk is everywhere, and I can live with that. When we stop trying to eliminate risk entirely and especially accept that there are risks in pretty much everything we do, and most things we don't have a lot of control over unless we want to hide under a rock for the rest of our lives, and even then, there's still a risk. So when we stop trying to totally eliminate it, anxiety can lose its power, and then peace can move in. I had this discussion with my good friend Tasha, who is a mental health professional. You may remember her from a recent episode. She explained to me that what I was experiencing was something called active acceptance. I love this idea of active acceptance. So active acceptance is a psychological concept that means acknowledging reality as it is, but still choosing how you want to respond to it. It's not passive resignation or giving up, but instead it's a conscious, intentional decision to stop fighting what cannot be changed and redirect your energy toward what you can influence. This is very different from passive acceptance. Active acceptance says, this is reality, so how do I want to respond? Passive acceptance says, this is reality, so there's nothing for me to do. The big difference is agency. Agency meaning that we're making choices and taking actions that influence our life and circumstances. We are an active participant in what happens next, rather than just being dragged along by events. And that is why active acceptance feels so empowering, because it takes you out of the exhausting battle with reality and to a place of agency and choice. What do I have control over? What are my choices? Actively deciding. This shift gives us back some sense of control because even if we can't change the situation, we can still choose our attitude, our actions, and the way we show up. Acceptance doesn't mean approving of it or even liking the situation. It just means recognizing reality for what it is, no longer fighting it, and looking for and making decisions around what you do have control over. So now Meg's back home in the throes of her new normal, and life is marching on. At the same time, I'm very aware that there are people not so fortunate as to be living next door to the war zone, but instead right in the middle of this conflict, where the danger is constant and the losses are real and devastating. Families are losing loved ones, homes are being destroyed, and entire communities are living with fear and uncertainty every single day. It's hard to comprehend that level of suffering from the distance of our safe lives here in Australia, and my heart really goes out to those who are directly affected. Like so many people around the world, I sincerely hope this conflict ends soon and that peace can be restored for the people whose lives have been turned upside down. Have a great week, everyone, and until then, I hope you opt to thrive.
The Opt to Thrive podcast is designed for information purposes only and is not engaged in the giving of medical advice. The information provided on the podcast should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. In no way should the information provided by Opt to Thrive be considered medical advice, and at all times the advice of a medical professional should supersede recommendations from Opt to Thrive. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, you should consult your healthcare provider. The views expressed in this podcast are purely that of Dr. Sims and do not in any way reflect those of the institutions she contracts with medical services to.
Thank you for listening to Opt to Thrive. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate and share the podcast. You can visit our website at opttothrive.com and leave a comment for any subjects you would like to hear more about.